So, Noni, thank you so much for your time, for getting together with me. So I'm doing this also because I really want to get to know you, right? And then I think a lot of people would want to know your story as well. So maybe can we start sort of at the beginning? So I know you grew up in Schenectady, right?
Yes.
So you're
Mhm.
very local here. Can you sort of tell me a little bit just about your childhood? Like, what do you remember about growing up? Like, what was it like for you? Do you remember anything that was memorable moments or anything like that?
I remember everything. I remember when I was two.
Oh, wow, that's surprising.
Wore my shoes in my crib.
That's a
um,
pretty incredible memory.
my mother was originally from Schenectady,
Oh,
and she met my father in New Orleans. So that's where I was born. They divorced when I was very young, so I didn't grow up down there. But I was there till I was about 3 years old, and then we moved to Pennsylvania with my grandparents, and ultimately we ended up back in my mother's hometown in Schenectady.
wow. So that's a big
Yeah,
long distance.
yeah. So I was about 5, going on 6.
Mhm.
I had done 1 year of Catholic school, and so I did kindergarten at a Catholic school in Pennsylvania, which I repeated here in New York. So I started fresh in kindergarten for the second time at Lincoln Elementary School. And I was there through 4th grade because I was a K through 4 at the time. And then I went to 5th grade. My parents, well, my mom and my stepdad bought a home in Woodlawn. So I went to Woodlawn Middle School. It was a K through 8, and I was entering in 5th grade. So most of the kids that were there had been there since kindergarten. So I got the tail end of elementary school because K through 5 was elementary, 6, 7, and 8 was middle school there. And then Schenectady High. Well, it was Linton High. I'm really dating myself with that one. It was not Schenectady High when I went. We had 2 high schools then. We had Mount Pleasant and Linton. So I went to Linton. Educationally, Jen, I think, as you know, I did not graduate high school. Um, I think, I think I was held back a couple of times between the kindergarten and then the 9th grade issue. I really was one of those kids who slipped through the cracks, and not because like I lacked the intelligence. Education was very different then. It was very easy for a kid to slip through the cracks.
Mhm.
So I ended up kind of just showing up here and there for 9th and 10th and 11th. And I pretty much sat through school to the point where I was like going into the senior year, but I did not finish. In 11th grade, I had never met my father, my biological father.
Mhm.
So my mother had connected with him. I think I was in the 10th grade or 11th grade. And I went down to meet him for the first time.
Oh, wow.
And I decided to keep going back and visiting. And school became like a real back burner thing then.
Mhm. 'Cause you had
Uh,
a lot of personal issues going on.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And at the time, I had planned on going to nursing school at some point, but I really
Mhm.
wasn't doing good academically. I think the amount of time I put into school, and I didn't have like educated parents either. My
Mhm.
father had a 4th grade education, my mother an 8th. She did well in the workforce. She had a great job, you know, but I don't think education didn't have the emphasis like I put on it for my children.
Mhm. Mhm.
So once all that was over, and trying to get a job, I never had less than 3 jobs when I got my first apartment.
Oh, wow.
I mean, that's what it took to pay your rent.
It's ridiculous. I mean, I think even nowadays, a lot of people struggle.
It's harder now. I would imagine for a young person now, I don't think I could have done it on
Mhm.
minimum wage. And so I always had like 3 jobs. I waited tables. I worked at like 2 different Chinese restaurants. New China, right on Rosa Road there.
I worked at a Chinese restaurant when I was in high school too, so we have that in common.
I worked in 3 of them, actually, 4.
Wow. So
Some
you
of the
must
people
really
really
like Chinese food or hate it
love
by
Chinese
now.
food. Yeah. So, I mean, I just found that it was like such a struggle.
Mhm.
So I did go back and get my GED. And
Mhm.
then I think I was 19 then. And I was also having my first child.
Wow. Mhm.
So I knew I had to do something more than work minimum wage, 3 minimum wage part-time jobs.
So you were doing 3 jobs and going back to school and raising a child at the same time?
Yes, and I refused to like sit through the GED class. Yeah, I kind of knew I really didn't have the knowledge to pass the test, but I did. I challenged it, and I ended up doing really well on it. So I went to LPN school at BOCES, and
Oh,
I finished, but I hated the field. I knew it wasn't for me.
you find out afterwards, right?
So I never like, I had worked as a nursing assistant during that time because you can get your CNA, a couple of months into school. So I did that, and I really, I knew, I saw the other LPNs. I'm like, well, that's really, I still have to go back and get an associate's in nursing, and it's a long road, and it's a backbreaking job. And so I finished it, but I didn't do anything with it. So then, single mom, shared custody with my son's father. And, I met my husband when I was, like 21 when I met my husband. We've been married now 22 years. We've been together 25. He was active duty Marine Corps. And he was normally on the bomb squad, but to get promoted, you have to do what's called a B billet sometimes.
What is that?
It's a B billet. So it's like, it gives you a better chance of promotion. So he was on the bomb squad in order to pick up, it's very hard to get promotions in certain fields in the military. So a B billet in the Marine Corps, you get a choice of 3 jobs: a drill instructor, a recruiter, or Marine security guard.
Oh.
Marine security guards, they're at the embassies. They're like the poster boys for the Marine Corps, 6 feet tall, chiseled face, like my husband didn't fit it. He applied for the drill field, he didn't get it. But he did get recruiting duty in Schenectady, New York, and that's where we met. And he was here, we dated for a couple of years, and then we got married, and then it was time for him to move, or us to move. So, and he went back to the fleet, back to the bomb squad. We moved to Quantico, Virginia. I spent lots of time, I always did well in the workforce. I always managed to get decent, good paying jobs. I managed a bar and restaurant for a while. Then eventually opened a nightclub. And so I was making very good
money. You opened a nightclub?
Well, I didn't, they did.
Oh, okay.
I just managed it.
I see.
So, but I made great money doing it. So like the idea of going back to school to make half the money was like, But then I also knew I wasn't gonna have benefits, pension, retirement, those things didn't exist either. I went with it for a few more years, and then I got in with a company doing road striping, and I got my Class A CDL license.
What's the CDL?
They drive the big trucks, 18-wheelers.
Oh, the really huge trucks.
Commercial driver's license,
You
yes.
were driving those trucks?
Yes. So I worked for a company that actually puts the stripes on the highways. Every road you drive on has stripes, and there's quite a bit of math behind it. And I remember taking the math test in my interview, and I failed it.
Oh no. Well, you don't want the stripes to be wrong, right? Because
there's a lot of math in that.
Oh wow, interesting.
For some reason, the owner of the company took some interest in me, and I worked with another crew chief, and they put me through for my CDL. They paid for everything, and then I got my own crew, and I did this other backbreaking job for a long time.
That is a really hard job, right? Because you're driving hours and hours.
It's not just driving. We were still a labor crew too. We were working in traffic on highways in DC because we lived in Northern Virginia. So yeah, we had a lot of federal contracts. So yeah, it was a very dangerous job. Everybody I worked with, all the other crew chiefs, had been hit by cars numerous times.
Ooh. So what was it like? Were there other women? Were there other female workers? Okay, so how did you feel about that, being one of the few female workers in that field?
There are definitely challenges, especially with, like laborers. Not that education should have such a huge emphasis, but these are people that worked in these very manly fields, and women weren't like totally welcome, unfortunately. So yeah, I mean, I definitely had challenges. I had people placed on my crew that didn't feel they should be listening to a woman, but I had a very supportive boss. I didn't tolerate that either. So, and I would say the addition of these few females that work there, myself being one of them, I think it brought more training into that company, because they hadn't had a lot of females prior. They did. They worked in offices. and they weren't out on road crews.
So having you guys out there, or having you ladies out there, it really gave that credibility more, right? Is that?
Yes, I think so. It did, because we achieved the same things every man in the company did. We got jobs done. We did them well. We worked long hours. We didn't, I remember a lot of what I faced early on was like, if there was something heavy to lift, people would just assume I couldn't do it. I'm not a big person either, let's face it. I'm 5 feet tall. I weighed about
I'm really
90
short
pounds.
too, so I understand. It's like I can't even reach things in my kitchen. I have to use a stool.
Yeah, so those were challenges. I don't recall anything really terrible. I guess it's, it's just part of history, what brings us here today with what we understand.
Yeah, but I think it takes a lot of courage, right? I mean, for anyone, not just a woman, to work in a job like that, that's, really dangerous, as you said. But
Yeah.
being a woman, I think just, elevates that even more so.
Yeah, I think my biggest challenge was finding a bathroom, because I was not paying attention to the road.
Do they not have porta potties or?
Depends on where you go. We were working in downtown DC, like on an exit ramp of a highway.
Oh, wow.
And, I really had to go, and there were no stores that, like, I ended up having to take the truck and drive like 3 miles.
Oh,
Because
wow.
it's not a great area of DC, so like every store had bars on the windows, no public restrooms, and I'm like, God, where's McDonald's?
So the guys just pee like on the road?
Yes.
It's like, I guess they don't care.
That was a bit of an adjustment period for me.
Oh man, I don't know if I could handle that. I have 2 boys, so I'm a little bit more better now.
Seen enough already. Yeah, so looking back, like, you definitely have to earn respect. You got to work a lot harder to earn it as a
Yeah,
woman.
there's going that extra mile, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, and you just kind of have to command it. If that
Mm-hmm.
makes any sense.
Yeah.
And carry yourself very well. Not play into the games. Sexual harassment is alive and well.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, I've seen it with other females. You have to cut it off like at the knees immediately. And that's how I dealt with it. Never had any big issues. Got through that job, and then let's see. Oh, I used to teach bartending school too.
Wow.
At the only
When are
accredited
you going to, bartend for us?
I can make some good drinks. That was a great experience. I did it seasonally. Well,
That sounds like a lot of fun.
It really was, because it was in Arlington, Virginia. So we would get a lot of college students, and just a really interesting mix of people. But it was actually accredited by the Board of Education.
Nice.
So that was fun. Yeah, I did that seasonally, and then it came time where we had to move again. My husband was transferring again, so pretty much every few years in the military. How we stayed at Quantico for as long as we did was kind of a mystery. But eventually it was time to go. Transferred to Florida, and that's where he retired. Eventually, that was his twilight tour. He retired. We had my daughter during that time. Well, shortly after. We bought a bar when he retired.
Oh wow. So you're really into the entertainment business, like
It
running
was fun. Yeah,
nightclub,
it's a
restaurant.
hard business
Yeah.
though. It really is. We got to Florida. He retired. Then we bought the bar, and then the next year my daughter was born.
Wow.
We also had 4 hurricanes, 2 of them being direct hits, like that first
Oh wow.
year owning the bar. So that was tough. I think on our house even, we lost our roof.
Oh wow.
Insurance paid for it, and then insurance companies started pulling out of Florida because
Oh
of so many
no.
hurricanes.
Right.
Then your homeowners or your mortgage company assigns some weird insurance because you can't even get insurance.
Oh.
Yeah, and then we lost our roof like twice in a month.
Oh no. That's terrible.
I just thought my mother-in-law had just sold her house in Staten Island and moved down there and
And you
bought
just had a newborn too.
Yes.
Man.
So yeah, we did the bar business for about it was about a total of 5 years.
Mhm.
And then I decided, you know what? My husband's retired. We talked about me joining the military, and I did it. I joined the Navy.
You know, I was waiting for that, like when that was gonna happen, because I guess I always assumed that
I
you,
was really old when I did it too, Jen. I was
yeah.
way older than everybody else.
Well, I always thought that maybe you had gone to the Navy right after high school. That's
No,
what
I was in my
a
30s.
lot of people do. That's, I guess, but so
I
how did
actually
you
had
make
to get an age
that
waiver.
decision? Oh, really? Hmm.
Yes, I had to have an admiral. Well, joining the Navy, I had to get like approval from the admiral
Oh, wow. That's like
because
the
I had,
highest rank, right?
yes, because I had 3 dependents.
Mm-hmm.
Even though my husband was retired and had his own income and everything, he was still considered a dependent for me joining the
Oh,
military.
okay.
And then my son and my daughter. So I
Mhm.
was head of household for 4 in their eyes.
I see.
So I had to do this interview with this admiral and get approval. That was approved, and then I had to get another approval because I had a C-section the year before,
Oh,
and then I had to get an age waiver.
wow. But you really wanted to do it.
I did, and I thought because I actually missed the military life. My husband and I like thought long and hard about this because
Yeah,
we always lived like on base. We had this very close community, and once he retired, that was gone.
I see. Hmm.
You live in your own world, so you have your own stores, you have your own social life, you have your own restaurants. So it was really weird being out.
Hmm.
So he said he would be the dependent spouse, and he would support that. So he did, and I went off to boot camp.
Wow.
Almost what, early to mid 30s. And I remember getting off the bus at Great Lakes, and this drill instructor, they just come flying at you. You go stand on your yellow footsteps or whatever, you get off the bus and you file in there, and they tell you to bring this very certain luggage with you, bring X amount of pairs of white underwear. We never got to use any of that. Like, and they're just on you like it's unbelievable. You're getting off a bus. It's very intimidating. And I
Mhm.
would imagine more so if I had been 18.
Right. Mhm.
Is
And then
like,
having all that life experience probably helped with, like, okay, this isn't such a big deal, right?
yes, I think it was almost comical,
Okay.
if you don't want to laugh there.
Sure.
Yeah, so I got off the bus and this guy was like, "What are you doing here, Granny? What do you,
Ooh.
what do you, what do you want with the
You're
Navy?"
30 years old and you're a granny.
He said, "What do you want with the Navy, and what the hell do you think we want with you?"
Ooh. But meanwhile, like everybody around you are probably very young, right?
Almost everybody there was 18. There was one woman who was about 4 or 5 years younger than me.
Okay.
I was also in an integrated boot camp division, so it was male and female.
Oh, okay. Hmm.
So yeah, I went through that process. Physically, it was probably a little tougher having had a baby a year before. But I did it. I actually enlisted with the quickest possible job I could get, which was a heavy equipment operator with the
Wow.
CB.
What does that mean? What kind of things do you operate?
Front end loaders, bulldozers.
Wow.
So, okay, are you familiar with the Navy CBs?
Mm-mm. I
No,
know nothing about. That's why I was like, this is so fascinating.
I guess if you looked at the Army, they have the Army Corps of Engineers, and then
Oh,
Navy has
okay.
the CBs. So they're the construction people.
I see.
So having experience in road construction, that's
Oh, that made sense for you. Yeah.
it did. So yeah, and I actually ended up working with asphalt and
Oh.
runways and roads. So CBs don't go out on ships. They're like one of the few land-bound jobs
Oh,
in the
okay.
Navy. They don't have any like sea duty. Like normally in the Navy, you're like, 3 years on ship.
Hmm.
Not that you're out at sea all the time, but you do live on that ship,
I
and
see.
then 3 years port side. But
Oh,
I didn't have to do that. I had just like a nice, nice land-bound job. So yeah, I was at Jacksonville for a while, Port Hueneme in California. Um, Time finished up, and then I thought, at my age, like I would have to put 20 years in to get a retirement.
oh. Mhm.
For military, you need 20 years. So I thought, is that really what I want to do? And then I thought about, and I never thought about this when I went in, but I actually had this GI Bill to go back to school.
Oh, okay.
Plus, I was missing my family
Hmm.
because it's a
Oh,
lot
so
of
you
time
were
away.
away from your family during that time.
Oh, yeah, 9 months one time. Yeah, it was come back and your kids are like, talking and running and
Oh, wow. So this is different than like living on base, like with the family, right?
right, right,
Okay.
because there was a lot of time away. Even school, you go to boot camp, that was 9 weeks, and then you go straight from there. If you're really lucky, you might get a week or so of leave. I did not. I went straight to A school,
Oh,
and yeah, it was on an army base in Missouri. So my family
wow.
obviously wasn't going to run around the country. It wasn't stable for the kids. My son was in school. My
Mhm.
daughter was very young. It just was too much. So we
Mhm.
waited till I got stationed and then, reunited. But you still go away for long periods of time. So at the end of that time, I figured, well, I could do this again. And if I do this again, then I got to kind of commit for the long haul because I would want to do 20. If I put 8 years in, I would want to do the next
I
12.
think you want to at least finish it. Yeah.
Right. So it's usually 4 or 5 year increments, depending on your job. So I decided to get out and use my GI Bill, which actually paid more than the military. I was
Oh,
making more
wow.
going to school. So we didn't know where to move after getting out because we had been everywhere.
Mhm.
Um, and then we thought about it. My husband was from Staten Island, even though he really didn't have family left there. He had lived in Schenectady and I was raised here. So we came back to this area. And then we were looking for good schools. So we moved to Niskayuna
Mhm.
and we rented a house for the first few years we were here. And then we ended up buying here. My daughters had the pleasure of, you know, almost 11 years now in one district, and she will graduate, never leaving this district.
Mhm.
My son graduated in Niskayuna. Uh, so very, very happy with this school district and just the stability. Um, I mean, we sought it out. We knew if we were
Mhm.
moving to this area, we needed that. And then let's see, I got out, I went to school, I went to community college, went to SCC. I was so offended when they said, oh, we can't let you just sign up for a degree program. I looked into it like in the springtime. So I ended up having to take like 2 remedial classes over the summer, like intro
Oh.
to writing, and I did great on whatever, but then I needed writing and intro to algebra. I'm like, really, I have to waste money on things I can't get credit for,
Oh.
but I
What
needed
did
them.
you study there?
But I was so afraid to go back to school because academically I was a wreck the entire rest of my life. And so I did that summer. I think that was like the summer of 2010. And then I got into the degree program I chose, which was like a human service. It was a dual degree. It was an AAS with an AS, so you could transfer or just go straight to the career field. So I did the AS in human services and an AAS in chemical dependency counseling,
Oh, okay. Mhm.
which was a very, very interesting track. And first semester, I did really, really well. I couldn't really base it on that summer semester of remedial learning because you didn't get a grade. You passed or you failed. You
Oh,
didn't
okay.
know how good you did or bad. So first semester in the fall, I ended up doing extremely well. I carried a 4.0 for almost every single semester. I think I ended up graduating at the end of that 2 years. I did my internships. I also worked VA work study. So with the GI Bill, they give you cost of living, which is
Mhm.
really nice. So whatever E5, so like an enlisted 5 level personnel gets paid,
Mhm.
that's what you get paid to go to school. Plus they pay your tuition for up to 48 months. And they pay for your books every semester. In addition, you are eligible to do a VA work study where you can work up to 25 hours a week for every 50 hours you work, which I put 25 in every week at the college. And I was like one of the first veterans and probably one of the first female veterans. I was actually the first veteran to get work study through VA at SCC. So I met with the Vice President of Student Affairs, Martha Aslan. She's wonderful. She's a dear friend of mine to this day. She's now retired and working at Albany. So I actually lecture in her classes sometimes.
Oh, cool.
It's so much fun. She decided to have me just develop a veterans program from ground up for veterans attending college and
Oh,
to
wow.
offer more support and connect them to the VA,
Mhm.
which I did. And
That's a great idea.
oh, it was wonderful because it really was a runaround as an adult student, a non-traditional student, just getting the runaround on campus and not knowing how to access these benefits or what I was even entitled to. I navigated it all myself.
Mhm.
So I was able to help other students, and that's what I did. She gave me office space, office hours, made sure I got paid every couple of weeks, and we were actually featured. We started banding with other colleges locally to open, like a veterans lounge in each college to help them have veteran work studies on campus, and it went great. And the 2 years went by so quickly, and I ended up graduating with high honors in an academic honor society. Phi Theta Kappa, like last thing I ever expected. Anybody who knew me 20 years ago was like, who is this? She's lying. And then I won a Chancellor's Award, SUNY Chancellor's Award for academic excellence, not only due to grades, but I was on student government and what I did with the VA work study. And to this day, I still oversee their program down there. I still
Awesome.
advise their incoming veterans. And yeah, it's great. And my last
Fantastic
semester,
legacy. Yeah, to really help people too, right?
yeah, it does. And my name kind of got around. I was in my last semester at SCC, and this woman called from the VA. She was with the Healthcare for Homeless Veterans program and Compensated Work Therapy program. She called and she said, can I interview you guys? We'd like to connect, just make sure we have resources for veterans on campus. So we met with her, and 3 days later, she called my direct line and she said, would you be interested in a job interview? I'm like, with the VA? Normally they're so hard to get, like you have to apply. Their application process is insane.
Oh.
You have to go through usajobs.gov, and I was direct hired for the position. I competed against 2 male veterans, and I joined the Healthcare for Homeless Veterans and Compensated Work Therapy team. I actually worked as homeless veteran supportive employment counselor. So that was my first job. Unfortunately, it was a temporary position, and that was 2012. So I juggled that job and my last semester of college and my internship. Lots of fun. And finished up there, and I did eventually transfer to SUNY Empire, and I'll keep chipping away at that. That would be more of a personal goal at this point, though. Nothing that's going to advance my career. Let's see. Yeah, so I did that 2 years in HVSEP. And then knowing it was going to end at the end of the fiscal year, I applied for a different position, and I was selected off the VRA list, which is the Veterans Readjustment Act. It's an employment act for veterans seeking employment. So it gives them a 10-point preference if they're a disabled veteran. So I come out 10 points ahead of anybody else who applies that doesn't have that points. So I was, again, selected for that position, and that was voluntary services specialist position. So for the next 5 years, I managed volunteers and donations for the hospital, and I had a wonderful supervisor. We had almost 1,000 volunteers for the hospital. I opened a food pantry while I was there. We did some really meaningful work. We had a lot of students from all the high schools locally. We had our first, under my guidance, we had our first youth volunteer program. I think nobody wanted to put the effort into that. It was a lot of work. But we did it. And yeah, at the end of 5 years, like upward mobility has obviously always been a goal. There was no upward mobility in that position. So I applied for a position as an education and training specialist.
Mm-hmm.
And I got it. And that was 2 years ago. Here I am.
Wow. So you train other people at the VA?
Yes, I work with our nurse educators. They work more on the clinical side. They do all the orientations for nurses. Initially, when I took the job, it's a lot different than what it looks like today during COVID. And we're short-staffed. So I work with the non-clinical staff. So whether it's cultural competency training, you name it. I also manage the learning management system for the VA, which is called TMS. Jen, in your career, you've had to do a lot of online trainings about EEO and whatever. It's all online. That's a learning management system. Yes, it's one of those learning management systems, and it's very complicated, and there's some poor soul in the background running that system. We had lost a person last January, so I have been covering that position, which actually was a great thing during COVID because it allowed me to work from home.
Right.
Yeah.
I want to know, so what would your advice be for someone who maybe considering going back to the military or going to the military like when they're older? Like, what would your advice be for that person?
I would say it's probably easier as an older person. Maybe not physically, you might not have the upper hand there. Mentally, though, it's so much easier. If I went through that at 18, I would have been in tears.
I,
But it actually earns me leadership roles
yeah.
to this day. I still just recently gave a reference to my own drill instructor when he retired
Oh,
for his job at the VA.
oh wow.
So I would say it's a great thing, and it's never too late to find a career in life, like, or your path, because I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do until I stumbled upon it, and that was a long journey, as you can tell.
Yeah, absolutely. And what would you tell, like, say, if a young person is watching this, or if it's a parent who has a teenager who may be struggling in school, like, what would your advice be for them who, maybe haven't found their path yet, like in their younger years?
Explore the options. There are so many. Trade schools are wonderful. Not everybody has to go to. We put such an emphasis on college, and we have a lot of young people who have had to stay home living with their parents, um, with lots of college debt. So explore the options. Ignore the stigma. Do
Mm-hmm.
what you're happy doing, and it's okay to try a million things. I did.
Yeah. Yeah. And else, it sounds like you had a lot of fun doing it. I mean, some of them were difficult jobs, but I think each different thing teaches you something different too, right?
It does, and I think anything you can add to the resume is great. The more diversity in your resume, just like in the world, the more diversity, the more rich the world is.
Hmm. Absolutely. And then I know, we're on the Niskayuna Board of Education together, and I really appreciate that time to be able to serve with you. What are your thoughts about education in general? You mentioned the trade schools and emphasizing that, but what are your like some of your I guess like aspirations for like what education should be? Not necessarily in Niskayuna, but
Right.
kind of like more overall.
Educational equality, because it varies so much from district to district. We see it. We see it in surrounding districts. I would like to see districts work more together.
Yeah.
But again, we're so different, whether we're tax-based or aid-based, it's hard to level that playing field. Um, but I think it's really important. I think this year missing the NISBA conference was really hard because the
Mhm.
collaboration comes from there.
Yeah.
It's so nice to meet other people and just have people like I've people from 2 and 3 years ago I've been able to email and just bounce ideas off of, and vice versa. So I really think that communication at higher levels and between districts is very important. That
Mhm.
equality is important. And this year has changed everything for education.
Right. The
It's
inequalities have just been maximized, right?
right. Yeah, absolutely. And I would say, our kids, well, we learned we can do this. Pretty resilient, but not every district made it as well as we did here in Niskayuna. Um, so yeah, it's a tough one. This was a really challenging year for everybody, and look forward to some normalcy, hopefully
Yeah,
soon. Um,
definitely.
yeah,
Wow.
and I love what we've done in Niskayuna, though. I think we've set a good example for other districts.
Mhm.
With our anti-racism policy, and that was a big one.
Yeah.
Um, Educationally, I know we just keep doing anything we can to move forward.
Yeah, we're all trying to do our best.
Yeah, I don't think anybody gets in it for the money, Jen.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Worst paying job I ever had.
Me too.
But most rewarding too. At the same time, it's extremely rewarding. I
Absolutely.
really love serving with our student board reps.
Hmm. For
I
sure.
think I learn the most from them.
Yeah, and I think we're in the point in our lives where, giving back, right, is really important. And I think, I remember like when I was younger, it's like, okay, how do I get the next job, or how do I, support myself? And then now it's kind of like, okay, I feel good, I'm okay, but like how do I give back, and how do
Yeah,
I bring other people along? So,
yeah, it's definitely. one of the best ways I think I can serve my community.
Mm-hmm.
And the people you get to meet, like you just learn so much from families you speak to, the students we interact with, fellow board members. It's been one of the most wonderful things I've done in my life.
So I have to ask you this. So I mean, we're all on the board, but what's your most, I guess, memorable moment from like being a board member? I guess I'm trying to get at, you know, if there's a person who's thinking about joining a board or running for election, and they're not sure if they want to do it, like what would be your words of advice for that person, or would you like how would you encourage them or inspire them to do it?
You know, I never thought I was going to do this, Jen, 5 years ago, 3 years ago. uh, when there was a vacant seat midterm there, you know, my husband saw the announcement from the district. He's like, you would be great at this. And on a whim, I did it. I got that encouragement from family. And then I thought to myself after, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? And then I did not win that term, but you know, springtime rolled around and I had interacted with a lot of people in town and the board. I would say you got to be very collaborative. You have to be able to work with people. It's you're one board member. There are 7. I would tell them that, you know, everybody I've worked with has done so for good, honest reasons, the betterment of the community, of education for our students. Always keep your eye on the students. Like the focus is the students, the focus is education, the focus is the families, and of course, fiscal responsibility and oversight for taxpayers. And don't let anything cloud that.
Yeah, that's really important.
Be ready for some late nights.
I definitely agree with you on the meeting great people. So I think that for me, that's the most rewarding thing. As
Absolutely.
meeting great people, including the family, students, but
Yeah.
also the you know, other board members, administrators. It's been a great experience for me as well. So
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, it's really nice, I think, particularly when you have an upset family member or a parent, to be able to just sit and talk with them and give them perspective from both sides. And then you have now having a calm conversation with somebody and helping them to understand why whatever it is may not be possible or how to go about it. You know, it's had quite a few of those and it's been nice. You really do get to know some people.
mhm. Wow, thank you, Noni. It's such an incredible story that you have.
It's been a pleasure. It's been wonderful almost 3 years now. Yeah.
Well, I love your can-do attitude, you know, from everything from working 3 jobs to, you know, working at a bar or buying a bar and, you know, doing construction, joining military, you know, it just sounds so fearless. Like that's the word that comes to mind. When I hear your story, it's just like, you know, just do it, kind of like the Nike, you know, just do it, just jump in, and it's so inspiring. Do
Well,
you
I
think
think
you have?
challenge kind of offers that though. Like you didn't work out, try something new and
Mhm.
don't be afraid.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you
And
have
there was
any,
failure in there, Jen.
of course. Do you have any, I guess, like daring things that you want to do that you haven't done yet that you know, I don't know, like jump out of a plane?
I was actually just going to say that. My husband and I were planning on skydiving.
Really? Wow.
I mean, I went parasailing one time, but I'm also the same person that was like afraid of a Ferris wheel, but I loved parasailing.
Interesting. That's cool. I mean, I've been told that skydiving is relatively safe, you know,
Yeah,
compared to most things that you do. It's probably safer than just, you know, driving to work, maybe.
it probably is. Have you seen the drivers lately?
That's cool. Well, when you do that, definitely send us footage.
Oh, I'll have a GoPro on if I ever make it that way.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you, Noni.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed my interview with Noni. Her stories and adventures are so inspiring. If you would like to volunteer or support veterans, I have added some links in the description below. And if you like this video, please hit the like button. And my question to you in the comments is, what are you afraid of doing that you really want to do? And I hope you find the courage to do that. So comment below and tell me what are you afraid to do and what is stopping you, or are you now inspired to go and do it? So please like and subscribe to this channel, and I will have some more interviews coming up for you. See you soon.